Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host Shwin and this is episode 296. I'm not joined by my co-host Prez, who is on the West Coast for a business conference. He's not grinding, he is not crunching tape, he is not locked in for the Knicks playoff run here. But the Knicks did win Game 5, and to talk about that and much more, I have friend of the pod. You know him as at Frank Barrett 119 on Twitter. His name is Jeffrey Rasmussen. Jeff, how are you doing on this very beautiful Thursday morning, I must say?
It is a beautiful Thursday morning. I'm actually just looking out the window right now, and it just looks like a perfect day, which is fitting because the Knicks got just a glorious victory. It was really nice to see them extend the season. I have, certain thoughts, and we'll get into that, but the overwhelming attitude should be relief and happiness that the season lives on and that there's still a chance to do something special here.
Yeah, and to talk about that, we have a new sponsor, which I need to talk about, and I forgot to do it in the first 60 seconds, but hopefully they won't care. BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs: basketball, MLB, NHL, hockey, right to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. And the game sure did start yesterday, and I promise you we'll be talking about it very, very soon. But before I do that, I have to plug our own shit here. The Strickland has an Instagram. You can check that out. That is at thestrick.land on Instagram. Give us a follow in there. We're posting all kinds of new content all the time. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are, please hit like. And if you haven't done so already, hit subscribe to the channel. That would be a huge help to us. Strickland also has merchandise. Jeff, I believe, is wearing some of it. I am not. I'm wearing a plain t-shirt. It's very comfortable. But our merchandise is also comfortable. We have a lot of new stuff too. Jeff is rocking some of the older stuff, but we have we got a Brunson shirt. We have a Quickland shirt. We also have a shirt of the entire team with everybody on it. It's really, really wonderful. There's shirts, sweatshirts, hats, fucking RJ Barrett mugs, you name it, we got it. Check it all out on our website, the store on our website, rather, I should say. And finally, the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez, except this Friday because he's too cool for school. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag, hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, a.k.a. the Doug Bag, alongside Dallas Amico. That comes out every other week. You also get access to the Strickland Discord, where the conversation never stops, especially during the playoffs. There are further tiers. So there's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod, where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. This comes with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on the pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. So without further ado, let's get started. Yes, the Knicks won Game 5 yesterday, 112-103, a game that was very much a game of runs. The Knicks got off to a terrible start, 24-14 at the end of the first quarter. It actually really felt to me very much like the Hawks series from 2021. The way they started, they just did not have I don't like the whole they didn't match their intensity thing, but they were not executing sharply is probably the best way to put it. They let the refs get into their heads a little bit, which is understandable, by the way. That first quarter was one of the worst officiated quarters I've seen in a long time. That was really, really atrocious stuff from the refs, including maybe the worst flagrant foul call I've ever seen in my life on Josh Hart. And all I can say is this team, again, proves that it is resilient. It digs deep. they might beat themselves because of mental errors, but they will not beat themselves because they due to sheer effort. They will not be they will not fold. It's probably the best way to put it. And probably no better epitome of that than Jalen Brunson, who was fucking nails yesterday. 48 minutes. I thought, was he good defensively? Was he great defensively? I don't think so, but he competed his ass off, and he actually had one of the hardest covers in the entire game, chasing around Duncan Robinson, which is insane, by the way. I don't know why that was like the matchup that we
Just put him on Gabe Vincent. I don't understand, or Kyle Lowry. That
yeah
is a perfect matchup for Jalen Brunson. Like, just put him on. Okay, if Gabe Vincent or Kyle Lowry is gonna run around a bunch or like try to beat Brunson off the dribble, that's a win for the Knicks.
yeah. I'm with you. I didn't understand that, but whatever. The point is, he did everything that was asked of him yesterday for 48 minutes. Did not sit, did not rest for even a second. And he was fantastic. Where did he end? I think he ended up with what 38, 8 and 7, something like that. 12 of
Yeah,
22 shooting.
he had 38, 9, and 7.
Yeah,
Only
yeah,
one turnover on 12
yeah,
of 22 shooting.
yeah, which is wild. 12 of 22 shooting. The guy, what can you say? I mean, when you're talking about a leader, like the Knicks have already gotten everything they paid for as a player, but when you're talking about the things he provides intangibly, the example he sets every single day, the example he sets when this team is under pressure, when they're facing adversity, his willingness to own up and take responsibility, even when he probably doesn't need to, when he puts it on his shoulders, it says everything about him. And, I know that when he was signed, there were a lot of people, myself included, that were like, look, I'm happy we signed him, but I would have been totally happy that if they just played Emmanuel Quickley at point guard. I'm very happy to say that I don't feel that way anymore. And that says less about how I feel about Emmanuel Quickley and a lot more about how I feel about Jalen Brunson. I just think the things he provides are things this franchise has needed for so long, a level of seriousness, and a guy who, I mean, not the most experienced in terms of playoff experience, but he has been there. He did go to the Western Conference Finals last year. He has that experience. He's faced adversity in his career. This is a guy who very infamously was effectively dumped in the playoff rotation by Rick Carlisle. The year before in 2020 or 2021, sorry. And he bounced back from that, has just improved and improved and improved and improved. And I mean, a culmination of that is probably these last two games you've seen from him where, I mean, if they don't have him in game 4 in Miami, they probably lose that by like 30. And if they don't have him last night, I don't even know. I think they were maybe still in the mix, but he was just so crucial at every critical juncture of the game. Like Miami, the Knicks, they cut the lead to 7 in the fourth quarter. The Knicks come out, they turn the ball over under ball pressure for Miami. Miami comes down, they knock down a 3, they cut it to 4. Next possession down, Brunson just hits a crucial walk-in 3, and like that didn't seal the game, but that was a huge shot. They really, really needed that. It looked and felt like this was the moment where, Heat culture, and like they're gonna fucking gym tan laundry their way into a game 5 victory on the road again, like they did to Milwaukee. Come back from 17 down or whatever the fuck they were down, 18 I think yesterday, or 19. They were down 19 at one point. And he just said no, like you're not gonna do it, not today. And it wasn't just him. I don't want to act like it was just him, but he set the tone, and that was really big for them because it was a sharp contrast, I will say, to the all NBA player on our team, Julius Randle, who did not start the game well, who has not set the tone throughout this series, unfortunately, and throughout this playoffs. And, maybe there are reasons for that related to his injury. I'm not totally convinced of that, but either way, he has failed to do it. And that's where you need a guy like Brunson to step up. And the big thing about
Brunson's
that is
hurt too.
Yeah, Brunson's hurt too.
Like,
and I think the big thing about that is like RJ, like I think RJ quickly, maybe Grimes, I think they can become players who are able to take on that responsibility and are willing to take on that responsibility. But having Brunson means that they don't need to do that yet. And they can grow and develop into players that are at that level, but they are not required to necessarily do that right now all the time. And it was just huge. Like everything about his performance yesterday and everything about how he's carried himself, honestly, throughout this year. And you look at, again, you said the numbers 38, 9, 7, one turnover, had one of the tougher defensive assignments in the second half, especially. The guy was, it's, there are not many guards in the NBA I'm taking over Jalen Brunson right now. Like that guy is playing at a level that is unreal. And it's not just how he's playing, it's the example he sets and how that galvanizes his teammates and what it means to them. And I think that comes across every single time he's on the floor. And I love his post game press conference, just how complimentary he is all the time towards his teammates. Always says the right thing. He never takes credit. I mean, even yesterday, they were like, I think they asked him one of those questions, like, "Oh, how does it feel to like send this game back to my series back to Miami?" And he said again, like this has been his mindset. And this is what he said constantly. It's like, none of this matters. Like, it's just about winning. Like, we just have to get through the next game. We haven't done anything yet. And it's like, I think
that's a really veteran thing, by the way. Like, and he's way ahead of his time. They really like to trap players in those playoff post game press conferences to try to get them to like give the other team bulletin board material and stuff, or just to like, and like, so like in the post game, in LeBron's post game last night, they asked him
about the flopping.
No, they did, but they also said you're 6-0 in home games this postseason. So does that give you confidence? And he was just like, no, those games don't matter. This is the only. We're not trying to be 7-0. We're trying to be 1-0 on Friday. And I've watched every single Brunson, Barrett, Randle. I've watched everything Knicks related, and it's very striking how the media goes from like tepid in the regular season, jokey, to like they're very, very strategically trying to get these guys to like say something that will build up the series more, or like, get them engagement. And your point is just so well taken. Brunson is just a master. Like, he's just, and the cool thing about Brunson is I don't think he's being like manipulative or indifferent or a media master. I think he's combining like poise and being a veteran with a genuineness. Like, he's about the team, and he's about like he's a good leader, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, no, not at all. I think I forget. I've talked about this a few times before, but I think it was one of the Dallas guys. It might have been Tim McMahon or maybe Tim Cato. But when Brunson left, I think they were talking about a preview, like they were previewing the Mavericks season before the season started. And I think I don't remember which one it was, but one of them was talking about how, like, yes, Brunson, obviously losing him on the floor would hurt, but they're more worried about losing Brunson in the locker room because of how much he meant. And like, look, we saw the Knicks last year, and I wouldn't look. I don't want to get into like the whole whatever the hell last season was, but I didn't feel like they were mentally soft, but I did think they were lacking an edge. I think they were lacking some kind of end of game know-how, getting across the line type of thing, which happens. And it happens a lot when you are playing veterans who are completely washed, like Kemba Walker, and whatever was going on with Julius last year, right? And I think you see what Brunson has brought to this team, and it goes beyond, the fucking 24, 6, and whatever the hell he's averaged, and it goes beyond that. It's that when it's time to make a winning play, you have a guy that you implicitly trust. And I think even Julius yesterday, there was a possession where the Knicks got like an offensive rebound. Somebody kicked it to Brunson, and Julius went to like go get the ball from him, and Brunson was just like he didn't even wave him off. He just kind of ignored him, and Randle eventually like spaced over to the wing or something. But it was one of those things where it's like, if that was quickly doing that, Randle probably doesn't react the same way, where he just accepts it. And I think it's important to have a player that everybody on the team understands how the hierarchy works. And I think, to your point about him being a good leader, one of the best things about him too, and we've talked about this, like there are times he struggles with balancing, finding his own shot, with getting other guys involved and everything, because he is ultimately, his core as a player is he's a scorer. So there's always going to be some of the give and take there. But I think what's really, really nice about him is he's conscious of that. And so even while in games, he might lose track of it. I do think he understands like he has to get other guys involved. And you see that at times where he's willing to, let Julius get a shot or let RJ get an action or whatever it is. It's not always perfect. It's not always clean. He's talked about it in this playoffs even. But it is there. It is conscious. And I do think that's something that is really nice to have. And it's not something that every point guard is capable of, because not every point guard is comfortable or as comfortable playing off the ball as Brunson is. And that's like a real weapon and a real advantage the Knicks have.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's important to remember, especially for someone like me, I'm so like reactive, and I don't know, sometimes I just have to like take a moment and walk back thoughts that pop into my head. But we're barely scratching the surface with what we're seeing with Brunson. Like, this isn't like the day to have a deep Tom Thibodeau discussion, but
it might be
like
just later in the spot.
like when Kobe wanted to get Pau Gasol going to start games, the Lakers had plays. The Lakers had actions to get Pau Gasol into spots. When LeBron wants to get Anthony Davis going, they have that stupid play where Anthony Davis stands in the corner and LeBron and he cuts to the middle, and it somehow works every time. I have no idea why it works. How do you not know it's coming? But it works every time. The Knicks version of Jalen Brunson getting a teammate going is, okay, it's your turn to run an ISO, or it's your turn to run a pick and roll. They don't have, so like, it's kind of unfair to Brunson of me. I'm being self-critical here because I get a little down on both the ceiling of Brunson as a number one, and more importantly, how much of this is he going to be able to retain when he has a true co-star? And I don't mean that to dump on Randle. Randle was great this season, but I just think it's pretty fair to say that
we'll talk about Randle.
If you're trying to win a championship, you need a little bit better. And so I can get a little bit negative because it's like you see what's going on out there, and it's like it feels like if they got a guy like Devin Booker or I don't know who other names would be, but it feels like Brunson would kind of become offensive diminishing returns. Sometimes it feels that way because it's like, oh, Devin Booker's here. Now Brunson's not just going to be, not have this 40% usage where he's always in rhythm. It's always on him. He's got to figure out a new way. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if and when that day comes, you'd like to hope the offense is a little bit more creative, and maybe Brunson, there is more to him. And I think something you absolutely nailed and is a reason to bet on that is just the mentality of the guy. Like, he'll be able to figure out ways to contribute that he's not showing right now when the offensive schemes changes. And that's a conversation for another day. But the point is that there's just something intangibly special about him that makes you want to ride with him and makes you want to bet on him. And right now, what we need from him is to be that, I don't want to call it like Luka heliocentric, but the offense is running through him. And I mean, stuff like this really, a game like this, I've said his name 3 times now. I don't want people, I know some people aren't the biggest fan of LeBron, but it really makes you appreciate guys like Butler and LeBron. Like what Jalen Brunson did last night, LeBron did like every game of the 2018 playoffs. And he did it. This was his 8th year making the finals, and he was playing like 47 minutes a game. And it's like, we watched Jalen Brunson do it once, and we're like, give him the key to the city, and it's like, and it's rightfully incredible. Like, it was an amazing game. And we haven't said Quentin Grimes' name yet. He played 48 minutes too.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And he played the last 2 minutes on one leg because the Heat have a legalized enforcer who like is just enabled to attack the Knicks players whenever he wants. I don't understand it.
Bam, Domi Adebayo.
Yeah, it's just outrageous. And like, this is just the thing about the playoffs is you see it with the Celtics. You see it with Marcus Smart. You see it with, I personally saw it with the Warriors last night. There are just teams who in certain atmospheres, the refs basically the entire whistle is a hypocritical one, because on defense, it's, ooh, this is a tough, gritty defensive team. Like, that's not a foul. That's just them playing good, hard defense. But then you're not allowed to, they don't allow the other team to do the same on the other end. And it's like, I don't care if it's a tight whistle or a loose whistle. I just want it to be a consistent whistle. And like, if you're going to call Mitchell Robinson for a moving screen when he barely moves, well, okay, there's 15 worse uncalled moving screens on the other end. And by the way, I say all this, and I'm quite confident that the Knicks got one of the biggest whistle edges you'll see last night, because from the second to the fourth quarter, they shot 20 more free throws. Like, this isn't a ref game. If anything, if I was a Heat fan, I'd be a little miffed at the overall ref impact.
I thought they. I kind of wonder if they, like, between the first and second quarter, because they probably huddle up, right? I mean, what the fuck else they gonna do, right? Like, I really wonder if they were like, yeah, that might have been bad. Like, because it was pretty fucking bad. Like, that first quarter was rightfully. I've been trying really, really hard throughout the series to not, like, lose it with the officiating in game, and not to, like, rage tweet about it 17 times. It was, that first quarter was fucking out of control. Like, I've not seen something like that in a while. You had 3 straight possession. Like, they called 3 straight offensive fouls on the Knicks. The first one, Randle has his arm over Randle. And so Randle raises his arm to, like, brush him off, and they called him for the brush off. And then they called the one on Mitch, which I don't even think is a moving screen. Like, if it is, that's very marginal given what they're allowing throughout this. Let's put it that way. And then the one on Grimes is just not, like, that's not a moving screen. They're both moving together. Like, and even Jim Jackson, who I thought,
compare that to the Cody Zeller one where he's playing offensive line. Like, again, this is my point. You can't, if you're going to call moving screens that tight, it has to work both ways. Like, it's like an umpire who, shows up one inning and he's calling pitches outside the zone, and then he's not doing that for you. Like, it doesn't matter.
One of those umpires that calls it one way for one team, and he's like, oh, like, he extends the zone for one pitcher, and the other guy's like, nope, like, I'm going right here.
Right.
Like, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I do think the Knicks got a really, really good whistle in the second quarter, which I think is why they were like, okay, we probably fucked up. Let's even this out. I think they got to the line more, but that's also, like, that's how the game should be called, because the Knicks are playing inside out in a way that Miami doesn't. The Knicks look for contact. Other than Butler, nobody on that Miami team, other than, like, Lowry grifting calls, hunts out contact. And, like, Bam, like, I don't know who, it was a friend of the pod. He's been on the pod a few times, actually. Is Kelly O'Burner on Twitter. He was, like, talking about how Bam needs to sell his foul calls more like Jalen Brunson does. And I'm like, they have the same free throw rate, and Bam literally, like,
all he does is shoot fadeaway 8-footers.
Yeah, he's a really skilled player. He doesn't hunt contact. Like, you're not going to get a bunch of fucking fouls doing that. I'm sorry. But, like, I don't think the whistle was that bad the rest of the way. I mean, I would agree. Like, I think the Knicks edged it. But if you look at the fact that Miami's basically getting away with moving screens on, like, every single possession, and they got away with the moving screen on the biggest play of the game, which Grimes ended up, like, bouncing back and ripping Jimmy. Like, I can't get to the point at any stage of the series where I'm like, well, the Knicks got a really good whistle tonight. They got a fair whistle. That's what I'd say. I think the Knicks ended up getting a fair whistle last night. And I think for the first time in the series, Miami got a whistle that they didn't get their bullshit calls. And I have it clipped, and we will watch it later. But we did get to see RJ Barrett, pull the trick on the master against Pop yesterday, which was fantastic.
I just want to say, and this will be the last thing I say on it, like, because it's important to me that, and I'm not being critical of you, it's just important to me that, like, we're as fair as possible. If the Knicks outshot the Heat 7-1 in the first quarter, and then we're outshot from the free throw line by 27 free throws in the last 3 games, we wouldn't be willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. We wouldn't be like, oh, well, let's try to break it down. We would just be like, that's bullshit. Like, and so all I'm saying is, like, if I was a Heat fan, I'd be like, all right, like, we did not get a great whistle towards the end of the game last night. And I don't think it's reasonable to say that the Knicks probably got a better whistle on that.
The Knicks definitely got a better whistle last night, but it's like, again, to me, it's just always like, yeah, you're supposed to get a better whistle at home, which is why, like, when Miami got a better whistle in games 3 and 4, I'm never going to sit there and be like, well, that's why they won the game. Like, no, like it's part of it. Like, you can talk about that. I don't think the Knicks got a good whistle in those games, but I'm not like, the Knicks have to own their own shit too. Like, yeah, if they controlled everything they could control and the margin of victory was just like ridiculous foul calls, then you can say the Knicks lost because of officiating. But that's not what happened in those games. Like, they didn't lose. Same thing with game 1. They didn't lose those 3 games because the officiating. No, it helped Miami get an edge, but the Knicks didn't control the things they could control, and that's why they lost those games. And that's what it is. Last night the Knicks controlled what they could control for the most part. Or they did a much better job, I guess is probably a better way of putting it, of controlling what you can control. And that's not like the 2 games where they've done that, they have won. That's not a coincidence. So, yeah, look, let's talk about a little bit about Quentin Grimes. He had a fucking fantastic game last night. He only had 8 points. The defense was there all night. He was on Jimmy the whole game. I will say, for the people that were like, because Tibbs had that comment after game 3 where they're like, why, are you going to play Grimes or why is he starting? Whatever they always asked. And he said something like, oh, he's coming back from injury, so that was a consideration. He played the entire game yesterday. Where did he play in game 4? Like 45 minutes or something? He played pretty much the whole game. I don't want to hear it, man. It had nothing to do with injuries. That was a definite thing where Tibbs was like, they had beaten Cleveland with that lineup. He didn't want to mess with it because he just determined that, like, he shouldn't mess with it, despite all the evidence suggesting that Hart and RJ together, even through winning the Cleveland series, was not a tenable wing combination for long stretches, especially. And he burned himself for 3 games. I'm sorry, that's what happened. He burned the Knicks for 3 games, especially game 3, I will say, because in
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're gonna, if the Knicks lose in 6 or 7, we're gonna look back on game 3 as the game. Like,
he punted that game. That game was a joke. Like, it was ridiculous to watch.
Yeah, and like the thing is first of all, Tibbs is so weird because, like, me and you talked a lot about the last 2 seasons, how, like, Jericho Sims would be out of the rotation, and then Mitch or the backup center would be hurt, and Jericho Sims would play double the minutes of Obi Toppin. So, like, and to me, that's very informative of how Tibbs sees his players. He doesn't see them for their individual value for the most part. I'm painting with a broad brush here. I'm not giving enough credit, but he doesn't see them for their individual value or their what they bring to the game. He sees them as cogs in this very, very rigid machine that he's built. And so it's just very odd that Quentin Grimes can go from, playing single digit minutes, playing low, playing 18, 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden he just hops in the starting lineup and Tibbs is like, oh yeah, you're going to play 48 minutes. Like, it's just weird. Like, it's just like, I'm glad he got it, but this has been apparent to everyone how important the spacing was. And I get that Quickly was healthy in game 3. Like, I don't think you agree that Grimes and Brunson probably don't play 48 minutes, even with how much Quickly struggled this postseason. Like, even
when he's like not in love with Quickly, he'll throw him out there for like 10 minutes because he knows at the bare minimum, Quickly. The reason he will always put Quickly on the floor for a little bit is because he knows Quickly will never nuke him on defense. This podcast is presented by Bet Online. I have to put that in there. But yeah, check out all the articles. Check out all of the the rundown that Sam and Tyrese host. They've been doing a really good job holding that down. Check out Draft Strickland. That's I know Prez has a lot of stuff planned for whenever the season is over, whether or not the Knicks have a draft pick. And check out the recaps. Everybody's doing really good work. Colin's had a few really good ones. So is Matt, obviously. And all right, that is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I hope the Knicks make your weekend great by winning Game 6 and extending our season just a little bit longer. But again, that's our show, and I will see you all on Monday.